Is there anything in particular about these sessions that stick out to you?
There are a couple of very specific things about Kurt's approach that were unique at the time and remain unique. He essentially sang the entire album in one sitting.
Really?
I think he came back the next day and did a few of the songs that, he may have redone a song or did a few of the songs that he didn't get to the first day. But essentially, we started the vocal tracking and then we just pressed on that whole day and he sang the whole album. That by itself is pretty unusual. His approach to singing was that while he was singing, he always wanted to be playing an instrument of some kind. In the beginning, he had this percussion instrument called a rain stick that he was toying with while he was doing the vocals. Mm-hmm. And it made this, brutal rattling sound that was picking up in the vocal microphones. And then when he heard the first playback, he was like, "Hey, can you get rid of that rain stick?" And I was like, "Yeah, sorry, that's built in, So he ended up re-singing that song, but and then he switched to this slightly broken acoustic guitar. He had this acoustic guitar that had a cracked top and had very old, very dead strings, and he would just strum along quietly while he was preparing to sing the song. And there are a couple of songs where you can hear this acoustic guitar sort of accompanying the quiet bits of the verse. And that wasn't a separate recording of an acoustic guitar. That was just the acoustic guitar he was carrying in his lap that he was using as a sort of a rhythmic confidence item during the singing. And so that acoustic guitar was a byproduct of his method of recording the vocals. I felt like he was being very square and very open with me during the session. Like he would tell me what he liked and what he didn't like, and I believed him, and he would tell me what his aesthetic inspirations were for certain things.
What was your favorite song to work on during the recording sessions?
I remember really liking the Milk It song.
Really? Yeah.
And then there was the one that we were calling the Name Game. The one that goes ba 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 da ba da 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 da.
Soundless Apprentice?
Yeah. I remember at the time, Dave Grohl called it the Name Game because the rhythm is sort of Charlie, Charlie, faux farley, banana, fana, faux farley, like that. It has the same rhythm as the Name Game. Yeah, I thought that was a really distinctive use of that rhythm, which is underutilized.
And what is the Name Game?
It's that pop song from the 60s.
With your session, if I remember correctly, you guys recorded 14 songs. 12 got on the record. Sappy and I Hate Myself and Want to Die were not included. Do you know why those two songs were not included on the release?
Not my call. Yeah, I wasn't involved in those conversations.
Mm-hmm.
There was also a song, one of Dave Grohl's songs, Marigold, that ended up being used as a B-side. That was recorded during the same sessions.
Did you record the Marigold record?
Recorded the basic recording of it, but the greater production of it, that is the overdubs and the mixing and everything, Dave Grohl did that as a sort of a side hustle with Bob Weston as the principal engineer. Bob Weston was there with me the whole time. He was there to make sure that if there were technical problems that we could get stuff fixed on the spot. And it was very helpful. It sort of cemented our friendship as well, working in that kind of an environment. And his girlfriend at the time was the chef for the session. Like, she was living there and she was doing all the meals and meal prep for the daily ordeal there.
And why in particular did you want to work in Minnesota at Pachyderm?
Pachyderm is an interesting studio. It was purpose-built as a studio. That is, the studio building was not part of an existing structure. It was purpose-built as a recording studio on a piece of land that also had a house. If you're at a studio where there isn't lodging at the studio, then you have to arrange transportation every day for people to come to and fro the studio, and people need to be there at different times. You need to schedule all that stuff. It's a real hassle. Mm-hmm. Whereas if everybody is just staying there the whole time, you just walk the 20 yards to the house and knock on somebody's door and say, "Hey, come on over. It's time to do your overdub," or whatever. So that sort of thing is very, very convenient. There was a non-trivial consideration that they didn't want Kurt to have a relapse, meaning they didn't want him to be somewhere where an aspirational drug dealer could get a hold of him and try to make a score by hooking Kurt up with drugs. So having him away from the sort of urban environment meant that it would be difficult for anybody to insinuate himself into the session. And that made that sort of a scenario much less likely.
Yeah.
So, and in furtherance of that, we kept the details of the session very, very, very quiet. I booked the time at the studio. I had done a bunch of records at that studio, and so they knew me, and I could book time at the studio just on my own reputation and say, yeah, I'm booking this time. I'll be the responsible party for getting you paid. We're booking out, 14 days or whatever. The band is going to arrive on the first day. I'm going to arrive on the first day. We'll sort it out then. And we kept it all quiet. We didn't tell them who was coming. They weren't suspicious. We gave them a bullshit band name. And they weren't suspicious, or if they were suspicious, they didn't go out of their way to try to figure it out. It was only when the equipment truck arrived and all the flight cases had the band name Nirvana stenciled on them, that's when they figured out what was going on.
That's crazy. And how did they react?
I mean, they were kind of excited. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, the whole point of this was I wanted the band to be able to get into the studio and make the record the way they wanted to without any distractions. That is, without other people clamoring for their attention, without other people like trying to snap paparazzi photos of them, without other people trying to get them to come to their parties or whatever. Like I just wanted them to be able to buckle down and work with minimal distractions. And I'm very pleased that part of it worked out quite well.
The first song you guys did was Serve the Servants. Did you get any of the arrangements for the music before you started recording, or was everything just you get there and for the first time you're hearing these songs?
They had sent me Rio demo, which was a demo tape that they had made in Rio de Janeiro that had most of the songs from the session and a few loose jams. The arrangements were all pretty worked out, and Kurt had ideas about, for each song, he had little extra bits that he wanted to do, either a second guitar or a contrasting part he wanted to add that wasn't necessarily structural, but there would be like, okay, well, we get to this bit, it's going to be a second guitar that's going to take over or going to join. And there wasn't not a lot of it was extemporaneous. Almost all of it was, in one way or another, was worked out. Kurt had a notebook that had his lyrics and his song ideas in it. In that notebook, he also had articulated specific things about the guitar sound, like he wanted to swap amplifiers for certain songs. He used a Randall amplifier for some of it. He used, the bulk of it was this broken Fender quad reverb that he really liked. Serve the Servant specifically, I know that he used this broken quad reverb, and it was missing 3 of the 4 power tubes. So the output of the amplifier was, in technical terms, it was asymmetrical, meaning that there would be distortion on one half of the waveform and not on the other half. And that would be, an unusual thing, but it had a very harsh, distorted sound, but Kurt was actually quite fond of that harshness. And so that was a big part of that record, was him choosing a very specific voicing for each guitar.
A lot of people say that Dave Grohl's intro on Teen Spirit is his most iconic drum intro. I really find that the Seventh Apprentice intro is his best drum intro. How did you record the drums?
My normal technique has been developed. Hang on one second here.
No worries.
This is Steve. Thanks. Nice to talk to you. Bye. Sorry about that.
No worries, man.
Dave is a monster. He's a very good musician, sort of generally, but there really are very few drummers of his caliber on earth or who have ever lived. He's often associated with the most powerful moments of Nirvana because, he had a very physical approach to the drums. But I think his tastefulness and his tact and his dynamic sense are underrated. On quite a few of the songs, he scales everything back to a very simple, very clean rhythm in the quieter parts of the songs in order to give himself headroom to really attack the drums in the louder parts of the songs. And I think that's something that he doesn't get enough credit for, of really playing to the arrangement of the music and playing to the dynamic of the song. I don't think he gets enough credit for that. His drum parts themselves are inventive. Like on that record alone, there are 2 or 3 drum beats where if you just play a bar of the drums, people would know which song it was because the drums are as much of an identifier of the music or as much of a signature riff as any other part of the music.
So you really feel that Dave is one of the best drummers of all time?
Easily, yeah. Wow. I mean, certainly, I've worked with a lot of drummers. I've worked with some phenomenal drummers, real world beaters, real crushers. And he's at the very, very top of my experience recording drummers. Extremely powerful drummers. Pardon me.
No worries.
Can you believe they're still doing robocalls?
Really? Even with the virus going on?
So my skill set with recording drums developed over the years by recording the loudest and most aggressive drummers out there. I was able to use a fairly normal approach, that is, close mics on the drums, distant ambient mics to capture the room sound. My approach to the drum kit is not to try to record the individual drums as isolated sounds, but to record the whole of the drum kit I've always thought of it sort of as a kind of bully's piano, like you wouldn't try to record the individual strings and hammers of the piano and then reassemble them in the mixing stage. You try to capture the sound quality of the whole piano and present it that way. You can shift the emphasis one way or the other using mic placement or technique, but the net effect of it should be that it should evoke the sensation of listening to a single instrument. And that's the way I've always approached the drums. Is you might have a mic that's specifically for the bass drum, but you're not recording the bass drum in isolation of the other sounds. There's a microphone that's recording the snare drum, but that microphone is also hearing the rest of the drum kit in the ambient environment, that sort of thing. I knew that in their position, Nirvana were going to be badgered by other people wanting to glom on to their success and wanting to siphon off some of their credibility for themselves, and that there were going to be a lot of people leeching off of them. For my own peace of mind and for their peace of mind, I wanted them to know that they didn't have to worry about me and be confident that I was going to do a good job without any of the distractions of the celebrity lifestyle or any of that sort of thing.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you like this interview I did with Steve Albini, make sure to subscribe for more because there is a lot more to come. All the interviews on this channel are original. I'm the one conducting all of them and editing all the videos together. So if you do want to support me, in all sincerity, the best way to do so is simply to subscribe. Thanks for watching.